Driving through the deserts of Utah has always been a quiet, reflective experience for me. There's something about the open road, the endless stretches of barren land, and the vast, empty sky that gives you time to think, to let your mind wander. I was on a road trip heading toward a small town in the northeast corner of the state. My car, a brand new Honda, purred along the highway without a hitch. A reliable vehicle, the kind of car you could trust on long journeys. That day, I was making good time, the sun beginning its descent, casting long shadows across the rocky landscape. I hadn't realized that I was driving through an area known for something much darker. I had heard of Skinwalker Ranch, of course, stories of strange occurrences, unexplained phenomena, and entities that defied logic. But I never paid much attention to it. To me, it was just another legend, another tale spun out of the eerie isolation of the desert. The highway was deserted, not a car in sight for miles. The only sounds were the steady hum of the engine and the occasional gust of wind that swept across the road. I had just passed a small sign indicating that Ballard was still about 10 miles away when it happened. Without warning, my car started to shudder, the dashboard lights flickering like a dying firefly. I frowned, my hands tightening on the steering wheel. This wasn't supposed to happen. The Honda was practically new, and I had just had it serviced before the trip. There was no reason for it to be acting up. But the shuddering grew worse, the engine sputtering as if it were gasping for air. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the car died. The engine cut out completely, and the power steering locked up, forcing me to wrestle the car to the side of the road. I sat there for a moment, stunned, the silence pressing in on me from all sides. The desolation of the desert suddenly felt much more oppressive, the vastness of it swallowing me whole. I took a deep breath and turned the key in the ignition, hoping that it was just a fluke. But the car wouldn't start. The engine didn't even turn over. It was as if the battery had been drained in an instant. I tried again, my frustration mounting, but it was no use. The Honda was dead. A knot of anxiety tightened in my chest. This wasn't right. A car like this doesn't just break down without reason, especially not in the middle of nowhere. I pulled out my phone, intending to call for help, but my heart sank when I saw that I had no signal. Not even a single bar. I was completely cut off. I got out of the car, the dry desert air hitting me like a wall. The sun was lower now, dipping toward the horizon, casting an orange glow over everything. I looked around, hoping to see some sign of civilization, but there was nothing. Just miles of empty road and the distant silhouette of mountains. That's when I noticed them. Two figures walking toward me from the direction I had come. They were still a ways off, just dark shapes against the glowing sky, but they were definitely people. Relief washed over me, and I waved at them, hoping they might have a phone or be able to give me a lift to the nearest town. As they got closer, I could make out more details. They were both men, dressed in plain clothes, nothing remarkable about them. One of them was taller, with a baseball cap pulled low over his face, while the other was shorter and stockier, his hands stuffed into the pockets of his jeans. They didn't seem in a hurry, their pace steady and unhurried. "Hey!" I called out as they approached, trying to keep the desperation out of my voice. "I'm having some car trouble. Do you think you could help me out?" The taller man nodded, but he didn't speak. As they got closer, something about them made me uneasy. It wasn't anything I could put my finger on right away, just a feeling that something was off. The way they moved, the way they looked at me, it was like they were mimicking what they thought a normal human interaction should be, but missing the mark by just a fraction. "Nice car," the shorter man said, his voice flat, almost robotic. "What seems to be the problem?" "I don't know," I replied, forcing a smile. "It just died on me. Won't start back up. Maybe it's the battery?" The taller man finally spoke, his voice just as emotionless. "We can take a look. Open the hood." I hesitated, that uneasy feeling growing stronger. There was something not right about this. But what choice did I have? I popped the hood, stepping back to give them space. They moved forward, peering into the engine compartment, their faces hidden by the shadow of the open hood. I watched them closely, my anxiety mounting with each passing second. The sun was almost gone now, the sky turning a deep purple, the first stars beginning to appear. The desert was eerily silent, not even the usual buzz of insects or the distant call of a coyote. Just a deep, unnatural quiet. After a few minutes, the taller man straightened up, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Looks fine to me," he said, his voice lacking any hint of emotion. "Try starting it again." I got back into the car, my hands trembling as I turned the key. To my surprise, the engine roared to life without hesitation, as if nothing had happened. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding, relief flooding through me, but it was short-lived. When I looked back up, the two men were standing right in front of the car, their eyes fixed on me. And that's when I saw it. Their eyes weren't right. They were too dark, too empty, like the eyes of a predator. A chill ran down my spine, and every instinct screamed at me to get out of there. "Thanks," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I appreciate the help." The shorter man smiled, but it was wrong, too wide, too forced. "No problem," he said, but there was no warmth in his voice, no humanity. "Just remember, you never saw us." I didn't respond. I couldn't. My hands were frozen on the steering wheel, my mind racing. I didn't understand what was happening, but I knew I needed to leave. I nodded, swallowing hard, and slowly put the car in gear. The men didn't move, just stood there, watching me with those unsettling eyes. As I pulled away, my foot heavy on the gas, I glanced in the rearview mirror. They were still standing there in the middle of the road, watching me drive off into the night. I kept my eyes on the road, refusing to look back again. The further I got from them, the more the tension in my chest began to ease, but that sense of unease lingered. I drove straight to Ballard, not stopping until I reached the small town. When I finally pulled into a gas station, my hands were still shaking. I tried to tell myself that it was just a strange encounter, that my mind was playing tricks on me, but deep down, I knew it was more than that. I've never been back to that part of Utah since. Every time I think about it, I feel that same cold dread wash over me. I can't explain what happened that night, can't rationalize the feeling that those men, if they were men, weren't entirely human. There's something out there, something that defies explanation, something that lurks in the shadows of the desert. And if you're ever driving through the empty roads near Skinwalker Ranch and your car breaks down, be careful who you accept help from, because once you've seen those eyes, you'll never forget them. And you'll never stop wondering if they were really there at all.